I love the series. I'm really happy to get to talk to you guys about it. For anyone who's watched the series, they know this is essentially an 8-hour movie. I can't imagine the challenges you guys were both up against to try to make this thing happen. So for both of you, I know the obstacles were crazy, but what's one obstacle for each of you that you were like, I don't know how we're going to solve this?
You start, because I'm just seeing all of it when you ask that question.
The truth of it is, it was monumental. So we started very early in prep while scripts were still being written. Visual effects started very early, and production. Actually, all of us started very early in the process. The writer's room was going, and we'd get pages, and we'd look at each other and go, oh my God, how would we do this? I mean, seriously, every single aspect of it. How do you create a cave world? How do you create the scene on the ocean and all of those things? So it was truly a nuanced breakdown with a overlying communication. It was the collaboration between production design, Kate's work, and visual effects, and all the departments working together. No silos. The walls were completely open. So we worked together to come up with these possible solutions.
Do you want to add anything from costumes?
I'm still sitting in post-shock. No, absolutely. And I think it was because the nature was communication between departments, and there was a little element of a pandemic that actually became a good tool. Out of that came good tools to be able to do that, sharing information and that. So, and with the speed that we were going at, being able to share information across each other's departments was so important. There is that tendency to want to hit and run on your own just to get it done, but you couldn't. With the challenges that we were trying to work with, and issues like scale and creature work, and that you had to collaborate. So it was a great, exciting thing.
And to be specific and not avoid the question, I think scale is a really good one. So we know that we have characters that are big and small in the same frame. We're going to have multiple actors playing the same character. How do those costumes work? What are the scales? How do we keep it consistent? It has to be scientific. You cannot cheat at scale. If you say this character is this height, the other character is that height, there's no fudging. It's not like, oh, if you're a couple of inches off, it really looks wrong. If you don't shoot it.
I used to come to the department with all these charts. We'd have lots of meetings like this, and Ron would come in with the whole previs all the time, and
So force perspective only works if you're precise. So it was all of those things, and the telltale giveaways of costume not being scaled properly, or set deck not making a piece of furniture or a cup or something in the frame not be exactly right. Those were the things, and those were the details that we hung on, and we made sure were absolutely correct across the board.
Individual questions. Ron, I read that this is, and I could be wrong, but I read this is the first show that was all cloud-based in terms of just everything, post-production, you name it, all cloud-based. Talk a little bit about making this happen, and do you think this is the future of every production?
Yes. The answer is yes to the last question. It is the future, and it is actually the present. It's already moving so rapidly. When we started, we were a Amazon show. So I asked Amazon, both Prime and AWS, could we be fully cloud-based? And they thought for a moment and said, yes. So they allowed us to do it, and we started to build tools. It was transparent to everyone. No department really it wasn't a big thing to each department, but underlyingly, the whole thing was built on a cloud-based platform, and it made it possible to get the work done. To Kate and Ramsey, we just communicated all the time in ways that most shows can't, because of the fact that we were cloud-based, and anything could be shared at any time, anywhere you were.
Yeah, I can't imagine, though, how scared you were if everything was in the cloud and the redundancies that must have been needed to make sure things were not lost.
That is a fascinating question. That's what I thought. You should have seen. We went into it with that mindset, and we made multiples of everything. We had petabytes of data and we realized we didn't need any of it. At the end, we threw away a bunch of it because we didn't need the redundancy. It actually is safe and it works beautifully. It actually, I became a true believer after it didn't break, not once.
Kate, I definitely want to know I can't imagine the challenges of trying to create costumes for essentially an 8-hour movie. So talk a little bit about what it was.
Dramatic.
No, but I'm being completely serious. You have so many characters, and each one comes from a different part of Middle Earth. And so, can you sort of talk about not only are you the practical problem of trying to design all these costumes, but then coming up with the looks of each of these costumes, and where do you find inspiration? What art movements are you pulling from? Are you pulling from there's just everything is just a massive challenge.
So you've got to, there's the whole arc of Middle Earth, and I had to start there, the source material, and I was very familiar already with Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I wasn't familiar with the Silmarillion until I started this job. So, in fact, all my crew and my department became very familiar with all of the books. So understanding the text as the background to understand the different ages, because there's such contrast between the first, second, and third ages, and understanding where our characters start and their creation and where they end, both with dwarves and elves and with individuals. So we started with the text, but then also I think in the natural process of research, and that you also look into the world of Tolkien himself and his influences, all the Nordic and Germanic mythologies, English folklore, his interest in Arthur and the Green Knight, all of that world, and also his own contemporaries. There's the Pre-Raphaelites and Edward Burne-Jones and all of those painters. So we filled our rooms with all of this, and resoundingly the thematic nature of elemental and each culture being imbued in a different set of elements. He describes the elves being born on shores of pearl and a hero covered in the dust of diamonds, and his words evoke a lot of we actually used to type out whole paragraphs and that from Tolkien's works from any of those books and put them up on the wall, and then gradually. So we'd start big like that, big sweeps, and then we'd start defining each element and its relationship to nature and its environment, and that would inform materiality and color palette. So it's sort of starting with bigger elements, and then you get down and more into the detail with each thing. But it helps you put a sort of peg on each wall and gives you a map. Really, we had to have a big map, and then we'd sort of be able to create rules from that for each of the characters and for each of the cultures. But the commonality was that it was all based and embedded in nature.
And to be clear, Kate had a room, and we would go weekly to that room, and within it would be material, words, drawings, paintings, Kate's original art on the wall. We would come and go, and we'd all contribute. Production design, visual effects, we'd all work together to so when Kate was talking about the words of the diamonds and all of that, we brought into the visual effects as well. So the ice climb has those elements very specifically that are also mirrored in subtly, but in the costumes as well, and in production design. So all of those things fit together somewhat seamlessly.
One of the things about this series is that going in, you knew that the world cared. This is a show that's going to be watched all over the planet. It's the #1 show on Amazon, on Prime Video. So what is it like actually for both of you? Because it's crazy hours you have to work. What is it like for both of you being part of a series like this that literally the entire planet is watching and cares about?
Well, we cared as well. I mean, that very much. I mean, it can be a burden to when you focus on that, but you can't really. You've got to go through the process and do your due diligence, which is familiarizing yourself as much with the material as you can and understanding the world. So we do the same process anyone would have, and the same as was done in Lord of the Rings. When you read about their research and process it, we're all looking and pulling out the same things. It's how you interpret it. And I think for us, the second age, where the trees give the light as opposed to taking the light, in the third age, we're at a time where magic, such as it is in its prime, and it's the golden age of elves and dwarves. And in Lord of the Rings, magic is fading, and as are the elves in that world. So it's sort of understanding that, and we were very conscious of trying to, with some of these characters, we've never seen them before in that, but trying to always go back to Tolkien as a source if we had no other visual pathway, and working off those descriptions really as to use as our base thing. And there was endless discussion and endless research about elements, and we tried to bring in things from the past, from the fall of Gondolin, and elements found their ways into costume and that. So anyone who knew the source material would recognize that maybe, they'd see some of these elements.
And I just want to add to that we took it as a great responsibility. We did not toss it off. We weren't. Some people would like it and some people wouldn't like it, but what we were going to do was going to do our very best to realize what Tolkien told us. So we always went back to Tolkien. It was the thing we did. The showrunners did. We took it extremely seriously, which sometimes it becomes a conflict between creating drama and modern culture, and also staying true to the material. So that was a line that we walked, but fully, the answer that I would answer to your question is we took it with a great deal of responsibility and care. And
a lot of people within my department, Matt Appleton, who was an armor, and Daniel Falconer from Weta, we had a lot of people have been involved, as myself, in past films, but we're ready to look at the material in a new world. But all of them cared, and it was great because it was a debate all the time before we made certain decisions on things. There was a debate about, was this true to character and that. So no one was allowed to get away with anything. You could be challenged, you could still make a decision to do something, but there was no laziness involved in it. We
had people from all over the world. We had young artists who were inspired, and it's what brought them into either visual effects or into some of the craft that came to New Zealand with the hope of being on the show. And we had artists that had been on the original Lord of the Rings that wanted to come back to Middle Earth and look at it afresh. So it was fascinating and fun.
Yeah, I might be in the minority, but I personally know that a TV show needs to do what a TV show is going to do, and the book will always be the book. There's, but that's me. But I'm almost out of time. For each of you, if you could keep a costume that was made for the series, which costume would you keep and why? And the one the one that you're keeping, is it a one-off or were like lots made?
Well, I'm fascinated to see what Ron's going to come up with there. I've got some ideas for Ron, but I think for me, funny enough, it would be some of the chainmail that we created for Galadriel in the Northern Waste, because of, it was something that Tolkien mentioned a lot, mail, and just, the way we, bringing in the diamonds and the light and sort of the world of Arda and Valinor, for me, it just felt the right language for them, their interpretation of a familiar element, I suppose. And that also took a lot of work. Many hands were bleeding at the end of that. But the chainmail is one of the first things that we did. I don't know. It's hard to have favorites, really. Sometimes they might be the berries we created or some little element of a costume rather than the whole thing.
For me personally, I would wear the dwarf's costume when he comes in for the rock breaking contest.
Scale double?
No, he comes in with a full regalia for the rock breaking in Casa Doom.
Did we not dress you up at all in the end?
No.
Oh, I don't know how he got away with that.
That was fantastic. Or for everyday wear, I would wear the heart
everyday wear. Can't believe he wants everyday look.
My everyday look would be the Harfoot.
I got to stop there. I'm just going to say that I really want to thank you for your work on the series. And Kate, I believe I'll see you later at a certain screening.
Yes. Thank you very much.
So you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.